Sport Fishing on the Fly is brought to you by Maui Jim Sunglasses. First Tellurium Corp., the future of mining. And Hardy Rods and Reels.
Well, hello everyone, this is Rick Passek, the Fly Fish Fanatic, and welcome to another episode of On the Bench with Sport Fishing on the Fly. Today, we are gonna tie a awesome little, really successful little mayfly emerger dry kind of mixture. It's more of an emerger than it is a dry, but deadly pattern. So in the vise today, we have a Hends BL 550 size 12. I tie these in a 10 through 16, and this is a clink hammer hook. So any clink hammer hook, whatever brand you guys like using. I'm going to be using some Semperfli Nano Silk in copper for the thread. I'm going to be using some, where are we here? Some Semperfli Mirror Tinsel in Mirage 1/69th, so it's the extra small for the rib. The new Scud dubbing, Craw Ditchbug is the color I'm going to be using for the body. If you want this one to float higher, more of a dry, go with a like a kapok dubbing, something that'll float. Either that or like where are we here? Like a dry fly. This is from Semperfli. It's called dry fly poly yarn, so it'll float, right? So something like that. But this one I want as more of an emerger, so I'm going to be using this Scud dubbing. And then for the wings or the post, it's going to be Hens CDC and kind of this yellowy golden olive kind. It's a little bit brighter than golden olive, but all right. So let's get her going. Fairly simple tie, not crazy difficult. It's important to keep the proportions correct in this one. You want to have a nice thin overall body. And then you want to have decent sized wings. You want these wings to be almost looking like they're too big, right? Mayfly wings sometimes are large, right? They look almost out of place. So, and this pattern is no exception. I like this one if anything, I like this one on the larger side than on the smaller side. I had a piece cut off here, but I will have to cut off a new piece of the ribbing material. Yeah, like I said, I like erring on the larger side with this. It'll help it keep the head portion out of the water, more like an emerger. And like I said, mayfly wings are almost disproportionate to the size of their body. So, and come on all the way back with this rib down around this corner. And then I'll just put that out of my way. I will wax my thread. Unless you're using a wax thread, make sure if you're using GSPs, Nano Silks, anything like that, wax your thread. It'll help that dubbing to stick. And like I said, the key here is keep it thin, keep it thin, keep it thin. You don't want a huge body on these. This is probably one of the larger sizes that I would tie. I wouldn't tie much smaller, much bigger. But I like tying them a little bit bigger for the videos because it's just easier for you guys to see what's going on, right? So excuse my the whistling in the background, but that's my kid just came upstairs, so should all be good. Just almost done here with the body. Like I said, keep it thin. Don't build this up too much. These are you don't want a lot of material on here because you want this to sink, right? You want the body portion to sink. So if you have too much dubbing on, too thick of a body, it will not sink. It will sink, but it won't sink properly. I want this to sit down in that water column just a little bit. I want the head to be out of the water or just in that surface tension, and I want this to sink in. So typical of an emerger. So now I'm just going to counter wrap 5 to 7 wraps, somewhere in that zone. It's not critical in the number. It's more of just an attractor, just hey, what the heck's that, right? Just to try to get their attention. Hey, look, there's the other piece of mirror tinsel that I was looking for. I put it down in the same place I put that one down. So now I will take my 2 CDC feathers, 3 CDC feathers, whatever you want it fairly predominant wings here. So you just kind of got to figure out, okay, that's if it's that full and that bushy, I'll just need 2. So there's 1. See if I can find a second nice one like that. That one's a little too long. That one's a little crooked. So it's a nice thing with these packages. You can filter through and find the ones you want for each different application, right? And for this application, I want something that's a little fuller and straight, right? If I wanted to do a wing, like an actual split wing, I would try to pick a couple that I can tell are going to split, you know, are going to come apart on me, right? Sideways. So I want a nice full wing on this. So, and if it comes apart a little bit, see there, it came apart. It's okay, but what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to turn this and stack it so they're both going the same direction. I'll show you guys at the end here the secondary version, the one with the wing split. So I want that about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch past the eye of the hook. I want it, like I said, it's fairly substantial wing. Do a little bit of a pinch wrap, and then make sure it's centered back on top of my shank, and then just come forward 5-6 turns, back again, making sure that CDC is nice and secure. Cut that off. Then I'm going to take I forgot about this, piece of hackle, either ginger or furnace, either or. And then I'm going to get one nice consistent feather here. So 1 feather. I'm just going to strip off the underbody, the fluff, and that hard center quill. I don't want that hard center quill because it'll just it'll create havoc trying to tie it in. Shiny side or colored side out towards you. Actually, wax your thread nice and tight, not too tight that you cut the quill, but tight. Then I'm going to lift my CDC and go in front, come back again, and then I'm going to take just another tiny little bit of that dubbing, and just dub that on. Again, this is more for just almost as to hide in your tie-in point of your hackle, but it's also to help create a bit of a thorax, right? So, and then I going in front and building a little bit up. I'm gonna just make sure that's dubbed on right, and then I will pull off my excess. And I'll just cut that. These got nice long fibers, so sometimes just pulling it out doesn't work. But so now I'm going to make sure that this is forward. I'm going to get my hackle plier and just kind of bend that stem forward, just so it softens it up kind of. And then I'm going to just in close wraps, touching wraps. You can have a slight gap in between if you want. I want at least 4 behind the CDC, and then I open it, bring it up, and I put 1, 2, at least 3 in front. That helps hold that up. Let's call it a post, but okay. So I got that tied in. Let go of my hackle plier, stroke everything back, everything. Get every one of those last barbels, tie that in. If you catch one, it's not a huge deal. I just like having a clean head, but it's not a big deal. And then just 2, 3, turn whip finish. You can put a little bit of head cement on there right now if you like, right on the thread. But what I like doing is I like tying a bunch up and then coming back later and doing all the head cements. It's just when I'm tying a bunch, if I'm just tying one ofs, then I'll do the head cement right away. But quite often I'm tying a dozen or so up at a time or more. Okay, and that is the final little fly. Let's just zoom out just a tiny bit so you can see the whole thing. That's the final thing. Like I said, it's a big post, a big piece of CDC, big wing, but I want that. Right, I want that to be there. It's this extra CDC is really gonna. You could even have put a third in to get it a little bit bulkier. Really gonna help this thing float, and I want this thing to sit in the water like this, right, just like that. That's how I want it to sit in the water as an emerger. These hackles will help hold that up in that surface film. This will help hold it up in the surface film as well, the CDC, and act as a parachute, as a sight, as an indicator, and this will sit just under the surface in that surface film. So like I said, you can tie it in that way, or you can tie them in this way. It depends which, if you're wanting more of a dry fly or more of a wet fly. So this one here is more of a dry fly. It's still tied exactly the same. I just split the feathers. I made sure the feathers were going opposite directions, and I went over through it. I figure eighted through the wing. So it depends if you want more of a dry or more of an emerger. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of On the Bench with Sport Fishing on the Fly. Tight lines, everyone.